All right, Mr. Chair, you are now live.
Welcome to the September 21st, 2021 meeting of the Annapolis Transportation Board. I'm glad to see you all. There is a thunderstorm hanging over our heads tonight, and we will proceed as far as we can get through the agenda. The first item of which is call to order and roll call. Let's see, our secretary does not seem to be among us at the moment. Gosh, that's too bad. Well, I will, for the moment, I will simply just note that attending are Beth and Carol and Zoe and Elvia and Kara and Charles and David. And we will hope that Vince shows up.
John.
Oh, John. All right. You had your invisibility cloak on for the moment, I think. All right. The agenda has been distributed. Does anyone have any changes, amendments to propose? If not, I will entertain a motion to accept the agenda that we will follow tonight.
I will so move.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
A majority having voted for it, we will proceed. The minutes of the last meeting taken by Vince were distributed to you, and I wonder if any of you have any changes or additions you would like to propose. If not, a motion to accept the minutes of the last meeting would be in order.
So move.
Okay. All right. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
A majority has approved, so the minutes of the last meeting are approved. And the city's been good about getting some of the old minutes back up on the website. There were absences, there were vacancies there on the chart of agendas and minutes there for a while, but I think they've mostly been filled out. So we move, we have no regular speaker, but we do have Eric here that we will get to shortly. In fact, I will make a minor modification to the agenda since he's here and a busy man as we move into the regular business part. Let's talk about the Annapolis Comprehensive Plan as the first item on regular business. And I will give Eric the floor because I know he had a short presentation to make.
Thanks, Kurt, and the rest of the board. Yeah, I'm not going to take much of your time at all. I'm really just here I'm kind of doing appearances at as many boards and commissions as I can over the next few weeks to share a release of the draft goals, metrics, and recommended actions of the comprehensive plan that the Annapolis Ahead 2040 comprehensive plan. And we just released a dedicated website for this material last week. And I'm going to share my screen here. I'll just walk you through the format. Let's see here. It's not what I want to share. So yeah, we're fortunate to have a link directly from the main page of the Annapolis, the City of Annapolis website. Here at the bottom, you can see it says comprehensive plan. It takes you to kind of the main landing page of the comprehensive plan. We have a kind of updated message about, where we are in the process. The long and short of it is we've been really kind of listening to people all over the city for 18 months or so. I mean, I've been here I'm coming up on 1 year already, believe it or not. So I've been listening for 12 months. Other folks in my department for longer. we started this process, I believe, in October 2019. And, you know, even though we're not releasing the draft plan document right now, we're releasing what I've referred to as the meat of the plan. It's the draft goals, metrics, and actions. And so you just kind of click there, and it takes you to this website where we've provided this draft material for folks to comment on, to review and comment on. And so there's, you know, some additional overview information for folks who really haven't participated up until now and may not be familiar with what the comprehensive plan is. We give some discussion of the structure of the comp plan, and snapshot of the process, or this sort of schedule. And, you know, I mean, I think the big point to make is that there's an opportunity to comment on the draft goals, metrics, and recommended actions right now. We're going to be organizing all the comment we receive, and continuing to refine that material as part of the plan document, which we hope to release in the early fall for public review and comment. So something that looks like an actual document. Now, I'm just gonna, you can access the draft material in this sidebar here. It's organized into the 8 elements. And for those who've been following along, environmental sustainability is an element that previously we were calling sensitive areas. And I think just because of the changes that were made, we kept adding additional goals and recommendations. Sensitive areas was not intuitive, and it was not a good catch-all for what that chapter was becoming. And so that's now a better representation. You could also access the material. If you keep scrolling down, you see these same links here to those pages, and then you see our principles for the 3 kind of overarching visions of the city: the thriving city, the functional city, the adaptive city. And then we've started to organize the recommendations that are specific to locations around the city are on this map. Not every recommendation is specific to a location. Some are kind of citywide, but like, so if I click on this, it gives you, you know, the location, which element. This is a transportation recommendation. It tells you what goal it's a part of, and then it tells you the action. And you know, you can zoom in to this map and see these. And if you click here, it gives you the key to these, to the element symbol. They're hard to see, admittedly, but hopefully people can just click on them and see if particularly close to where you live or work or other parts of the city that you care about. So I'm just gonna, I want to go into just the transportation section here, since that's what we're talking about tonight. And so you can see this format is similar for all of these pages. There's a link to submit comments. If I were to click on that, it takes me to what is a very familiar comment form on the city's website for those who've done this before, commented on anything really. The main difference is that it's going to tell us you're commenting on the transportation element. We ask folks to submit as much information as they're comfortable sharing, although some of this is required. And then the goal that you are responding to, and then any information you want to share in this comment box. And then you would ultimately hit submit down here. But let me go back to the transportation main page. We've provided some exhibits of some of the more compelling graphics that kind of tell the story of existing conditions in Annapolis. Excuse me for a second. So each of these element areas, you'll see anywhere from 3 to 6 different exhibits that these are the things that pointed us to draft goals and metrics and recommended actions, in addition to everything we heard from community members and groups in the city. But this isn't a comprehensive set of exhibits. I think the plan document that you'll see in the fall will be much more thorough and with narrative and additional maps and graphics, but this is just some of them. And then you'll have the goals. And so we have 4 goals for transportation. I know I've shared some of these previously. The main changes, were text related. So we added additional actions. We kind of wordsmith things. We're trying to be clear as much as possible to, recognizing this is something that we want to make sense to a broad audience, not just, decision makers in the city, but, residents, business owners, people looking to move here, people looking to invest here. The eventual plan document, I think, is going to have a glossary, because there are some terms in here that might go over people's heads, but we've tried to simplify. And so if somebody submits a comment, we just ask you to kind of reference the goal that you're referring to. And I mean, you could be as specific as you want to be, but so I'm not going to get too much into it, but you can see the format. And so all of these are kind of a similar municipal growth. You can see it has a sentence. Some of these elements have more than 4 goals. It just happens to be 4 here too. But yeah, so that's actually, I want to go back to one other thing. On the main page, where you have this kind of overview of the comprehensive plan process. Down at the bottom here, there's something called case studies. I've mentioned this before. These are 4 sites in the city that we think are going to redevelop in the next 10 years or so, maybe 10 to 20 years. They're places that are going to have a significant impact on the city when that happens. We're trying to get ahead of things a little bit in the comprehensive plan, recognizing that we're not really in a position to put a real finite scope on what happens in these places, but we want to provide some recommendations to the owners of these sites or whoever might develop them. One is city owned, so the city in this case. The Spa Road site, as you know, is soon to be former Public Works facility. The rest are privately owned and some are consolidated. The Bay Ridge Shopping Center here is a single owner. The Chinkapin Forest Drive intersection area. I mean, we're talking here about various properties and so the ownership of this area is complicated. And then this one is the shopping center at Route 2 and West Street, or Solomon's Island Road and West Street. And what we're trying to do with these are sort of like urban design case studies where we'd like to demonstrate what's possible on these sites that, in line with what the comprehensive plan's goals and visions are. What kind of additional multimodal access is possible here? What kind of environmental performance could this site have that wasn't 60% parking lot? What kind of connections to adjacent communities could exist here that don't exist today? What kind of retail or housing or park open space could exist here that might be a better use of this site? That's kind of what we're looking at those are the kind of questions we're asking. And we provide some basic context information for each of these sites. And then at the bottom, there's a simple 4-question survey that we ask folks to, if you're interested in sort of sharing your insight on this, there's just, it's pretty straightforward 4-question survey that would help us gather some insight onto these sites and these locations. And yeah, these aren't going to be fully fleshed out master plans. There's really just some guidance on these sites that could help future developer understand what the community is looking for, what the comprehensive plan says about this site, and try to narrow that distance between what a developer might propose and what the community wants to see. That's kind of the intent here. So yeah, so I'm gonna
Okay.
stop sharing, and that's my comment for this evening.
Hey, Eric, this is Delvia. I think that the fact that you have interactive maps is really great.
Thanks.
That's very good.
Glad to hear it. We're
That's true.
trying to do some different things here. I mean, obviously COVID has made us work online more than ever before. And so we've started to try to push the infrastructure, the IT infrastructure a little bit, but yeah.
Good.
Eric,
Eric, would you please
how-
remind us?
on,
I'm sorry, go ahead, Carl.
it's all right. How has the response rate been on folks clicking through and commenting on transportation and reviewing everything that you've put on the website?
Well, it's too soon to say. We just it went live last Thursday.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
we literally this is the very beginning of this I should have mentioned already that we're planning to collect comments in through early August. So we're going to continue meeting with folks, different groups and individuals as we hear folks that are interested in participating further and have specific concerns. But we'll see in a few weeks what kind of traction this has. We've gotten a few comments already, and we have a comment log that we're going to be tracking everything through and making those comments public, and just trying to be as transparent as possible.
Eric, would you communicate to us again what the timeline is for us as individuals or as a board to submit comments and try to influence this? Well, how much time do we have? How rapidly should we act?
Well, we'd love comments as soon as possible, but we're going to keep this website open until early August. So I would say, be great to review it next week and provide comments, but in the fall, so we'll integrate the comments we get, will inform changes that we make to these goals and actions and metrics. And then that will then feed into the plan document that we're continuing to work on through the summer. And so the plan document we would share in the early fall, and that's going to be something very concrete, to respond to at that point. And that's going to have additional narrative and graphics and photos. And I mean, some people respond better to that kind of format. It'll be like a PDF document, most likely, that you could download.
Okay,
So
great.
that-
Beth,
that's another-
you had a question?
Yes. How have you notified the citizens of Annapolis that you have this out there and that you want them to review it and want their comments? Because I don't think I've received anything at this point. And I mean, because I have a feeling there's gonna, if you don't, disseminate that information, the time's gonna come and there's gonna be a lot of people saying, boy, if I'd known that, I would have loved to have gone out and said or done something, but I didn't know. And so how do you, because I didn't realize it was out there. I don't think any of us realized it was out there. So
I would just add that meeting with interest groups is great, but you are going to miss some people who may not be involved in, if it's other boards, folks who just don't have the time to do that, you might be missing important populations.
Well, I'm just talking about getting out, like, the city sends out,
Yeah, agree.
announces things and sends them out to everybody that they have on their email list, which is
Yeah.
basically everybody. And then Ellie picks up for Ward 1 and reiterates it.
Yeah.
So
Ellie sent a message out on Friday to everybody on her list. So the answer to your question is we're doing a number of things. Yeah, definitely meeting with boards and commissions is not the only way we're trying to get the word out. We're using social media. So if you haven't seen something on Facebook or
but
Twitter,
you're not on
yeah.
Facebook.
Okay. Well,
I'm not on Facebook.
for those who are, there will be something there. We're working with the Mitchell Stevenson, the city's public information officer, on some outreach there.
She hasn't
last-
sent a press release as far as I know.
Yeah, she may have not. I don't think she's doing a press release, but she's planning. She did provide some social media announcement on that, and I'll just double check where that went. What outlets she used. But Nextdoor will be one of those other places. There's a front page story in the Capitol today about this that had the address. And basically what kind of comment input we're trying to receive. We're kind of appealing to anybody who's part of a neighborhood association or civic association to help us and get the word out to your networks. And we have a list of those groups that we're going to be sending something to. But yeah, clearly the next week or two are pretty critical for us to get the word out. So yeah, other ideas are definitely welcome. But
Great.
Well, I can tell you that definitely Annapolis Green will send this out. And
Thank
of
you.
course, that'll be skewed toward the environmental part, but the environmental part is part of a bigger piece. So we've got 3,000 on our list.
thank you.
Fine.
Appreciate
Well,
it.
thank you, Eric, for giving us an update, and we have a clearer idea of what we can and should do going
There's
forward.
a couple other comment arms up. It looks like I'm happy to answer any questions.
Yeah.
If I don't mind, I just wanted to compliment you, Eric, on releasing the meat, as you called it, the nuggets, before it gets wrapped up into a 400-page document or wherever this thing winds up being. These things tend to be difficult to read once they're fully assembled. And I love the fact that you went out and got us thinking about the critical issues first, and you'll be able to wrap them into the right document later. But let's have the dialogue now.
Thank you, John.
Okay. While we are on the subject of the comprehensive
Carol.
plan, starting with David and Carol,
I'd
would
make
you
a
like to hold forth?
I'd
Carol?
like to make a couple of observations and follow up on what John said. Congratulations. I've been paying a lot of attention in the last months, but particularly in the last couple of weeks, to how much is going on in the city government regarding change. And some of it is in the near future, and it's going to be major changes. The most obvious is the city dock action plan. But there is also increasing conversation more and more about regionalization, cooperation with the Anne Arundel County. So given all of that occurring in the now, or the short term now, I think that pattern you've set up in the plan to include these case studies could be very useful, because I think there might be other cases developing literally as we go through the process of approving and then kicking off this comprehensive plan. I mean, this board, and I have some historical perspective on it, obviously, that you all get tired of hearing about, but it's really unique to be in the situation where we are at the starting gate of not just the drafting of a comprehensive plan, but the encouragement of it, the push out of it. And in terms of what the board can do, I think that in response to what Beth was concerned about and others of you, I think that, we can't call everybody up in town and tell them about this comprehensive plan, but we've got a system in place. The city council is, divides the city very neatly into eight wards, and those politicians, those leaders, should be responsible for informing their constituents about options open to them. I think that's particularly true in light of one of the regionalization activities that's going on right now. City Council member Sheila Finlayson has proposed, and I think passed, a large comprehensive survey of what constituents in town want. So I won't go into all the details, but I think there needs to be some working form in the plan to incorporate things like, the Maritime Trust activity, not the Maritime Trust, the Maritime Task Force activity, the City Dock activity, the transit hub mobility site on Solomon's Island Road. Those are all things that people need to know about. I forgot what my other point was. Well, I guess in my general awareness of what's going on now, and this is relevant to the plan, something like one of your goals, the micro transit pilot program, it has already become a working part of the operation of the plan. So I want to see these things working together, not separately. And I don't have an answer about how that's going to be done, but I think that those case studies and the possibility of more of them are an ideal sort of operational planning way to do that.
Can I just share one other thing that I think addresses what you're talking about, Carol, and that I'm kind of particularly excited about, that you'll see in the draft goals. Following comprehensive plans, planning departments typically do small area planning in the intervening years. We look at, kind of zoom in to these specific places in the city where we need to look at things in a more granular way. And we typically make recommendations for those areas that need that kind of study. One thing that we're proposing in this comprehensive plan is to use the creek sheds of the city as kind of a planning framework for the city. We have 4 major creek sheds, watersheds, and we have some other watersheds that are part of, larger creek areas. But we felt that to try to coordinate land use and mobility goals with environmental goals, that would be a framework that would allow us to do that. And I'm excited to basically focus on things in that way, following the comprehensive plan. So, the Back Creek watershed would have a small area plan, the Spa Creek watershed, College Creek, Weems Creek, et cetera. And the idea is to, one level, inform people live in the city which creek sheds their actions contribute to, the way we move around the city, the way things get developed, the way we maintain our yards and open spaces. I mean, it's all obviously impacts the waterways, which in turn impact our livelihood, economy, culture of the city. And so that is a strategy that we're taking. And
well, that could be a way to inform the public, and it sounds comparable in a way to what the county did when it encouraged a great deal of public input to the development of its comprehensive plan. There was a real effort, especially on Pittman's part, to go into areas, all the areas of the county individually, and give them a sense of their own contribution. And that would be a neat little system for dividing up Annapolis and approaching it, beyond the council board setup into a geophysical setup, sort of, in a way.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. I mean, the county has their sub area zones that they're going to be doing these smaller plans for. They have 9 of them, and so I mean, this is kind of the Annapolis take on that. We just got a lot of comments that it seemed like land use goals were not like as coordinated with environmental goals as they should be, and don't necessarily agree with that, but it's hard at this 30,000 foot scale to sort of show that those things are going to be in line with each other, you know, and I think only at the more of that, you know, neighborhood scale can you start to see the relationship a little better. So that's kind of one way of addressing it.
Okay. Do any other members of the board have points on this subject they would like to bring up? If not, thank you, Eric, so much for appearing again. And we will try to participate individually. And let me ask members of the board, please, if you think there are actions, recommendations that we should make as a board, propose them, and we will act on them. All right, next item on a related subject, I guess, is the transit survey update, which Kara has been working on with Eric and others. Can you give us an update on where we are?
I don't have an update today. It does seem like there's a lot of surveying that is going on with the comprehensive plan.
Mm-hmm.
So I wonder if we would sort of be reinventing the wheel, and rather than recommending a separate survey, just working with our ward alder folks to help get the word out about the existing opportunities for commenting.
Good.
Kara, may I respond to that? Kind of along the same lines that I'm already traveling. In terms of my perception of how much activity there is right now, a specific is that the city dock action group, the contractor to that program, is engaged in a pretty serious development now of data gathering and information about what to do about parking in particular, because obviously their first effort is to build the Hillman garage. But that sounds to me, just as an observer to a meeting of the group, that this is a sizable, professional, and pretty extensive gathering of information of you know, what people need, what people want, and what's feasible in terms of the existing city setup. So this would be a time, and I'm just making this as sort of a general encouragement for the board to do what we can to integrate our efforts, something, you know, very much like what you're doing, Kara, which is a very important and good idea at this point, into the broader initiatives that are going on all around us, as far as I could tell.
And Carol, where would I find more information about that data gathering?
Well, if you go to this, I guess Eric can help me with this, but I think the City Dock Action group it's active on the city website. So their meetings, their findings, their reports. I know that the report about Hillman Garage is up, and I think it's on the city website. I've seen it and participated in it, but I don't want to steer you the wrong way.
Okay, Eileen Fogarty?
Yeah, the City Dock Action Committee is,
Yes, but
the plan is very much it's under implementation at this point. And the
Yeah.
Hillman Garage, and this is, you know, I do want to sound somewhat, you know, like the bell ringer at this point. What's happening with Hillman Garage is hugely consequential. I mean, you know, I've been sitting in this chair for 10 years, and it's like all of a sudden Hillman Garage fell out of the sky as a new and, you know, and real thing. And we need to be on that. If for no other reason than to look out for the community interests, you know, for the people we represent as the board, but also out of our own interest for something that is very, very professional and very hopeful that's going on right now. Let me give you one last example, and then I'll shut up, and I don't have to talk during our roundtable, Kurt. But at the meeting that I went to just a few days ago, went to online, and you know, these are videos of the City Dock Action Committee interacting with the contractor who's engaged in starting the building of the Hillman Garage. There was a discussion about how much observation, how much planning, how much data gathering that contractor is doing regarding parking and mobility. And that was the word that they used, mobility, because it's a garage that has cars coming to it. And at the end of that conversation, the mayor and Ellie, and it was in the words of the mayor, spoke to the contractor and said, keep us apprised of this, we, the city, the council. We want to know what you're finding, because when it gets implemented, as it will in the development of City Dock and the downtown area and Hillman Garage, the city wants to take that viable system and claim it as their own and move it forward into Eric's comprehensive plan, into what unfolds in the next 5, 10, 20 years to make Annapolis work better. Well, that, I don't want to sound too idealistic about this or too Pollyannish about it, but believe me, from my perspective, that's happening right now, right under our noses. Is Eric still there?
I think he's left.
Yeah, well, he would, I'm sure he would testify to my enthusiasm.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Carol. And Kara, does that complete your discussion on this topic? And what's your recommendation with respect to how we carry it forward? Would you like to leave this on the agenda for next month or not?
I don't think we need to leave it on the agenda for next month, but I'd be interested in, I'll shoot you an email, Carol, about how we could perhaps get some questions that would be relevant from the board into what's already happening with data collection. So if it's adding questions about how often you're using transit, why you do or you don't use it, already using the vehicles that are out there for collecting this information is probably the most useful way for us to achieve an understanding of how folks are using transit in the city.
Well, to bring it back to the now, I think we might be able to do that most effectively by responding to Eric's and Kurt's urging us to respond, to these questions, and to respond either as individuals or as the board with specific requests for data in your case and participation in data collection and data understanding, or or other things that we feel are relevant to carrying this all out. Zoe, I think, is a fairly active participant in the city action activity, the City Dock action. Is that the case, Zoe? You probably have a better perspective on it than even I do.
I was going to chime in on something. So I participated, I co-chaired the resiliency work group. So I was not that involved in the parking work group for the City Dock Action Committee, but I participated in all the meetings. So I gleaned a lot of information through that with regard to transportation. But there were a lot of assumptions that went in and are going into the design of the parking garage in terms of capacity and what's needed now, and then thinking about what would be needed into the future based on where transportation sort of growth and different changes in sort of transportation technology may go in the future. So I believe that's why they're doing so much outreach, to sort of have an understanding about traffic patterns, transportation, parking, autonomous vehicles, if you go back, and I'll just send it out, the actual plan, the City Dock Action Plan, because there is a whole transportation and parking chapter that was very, I can't remember the name of the woman who chaired it, but very, had a lot of expertise in parking and traffic patterns and ways of incentivizing, different, improvements from wayfinding to, some pretty forward thinking, action. So I think it would definitely be something for us to take a look at, and then to ensure that, as the design, or even just sort of the requirements that are being incorporated, and requirements is kind of a Navy term, but basically the number of parking spaces that are being incorporated into the design now are sort of adequate, or what our thoughts are on that. I know that one of the design elements is to have allow for more parking spaces now, but that as we need less because of autonomous vehicles and other improvements in transportation, that some of those parking spaces could be converted to other uses in the future. So sort of an adaptable design. So they're really, really thinking creatively about it, but it definitely, I think from this board's perspective, it's something that we should probably maybe have a presentation on where they are and think about how we want to stay engaged in thinking about it, because there are a lot of, there's the long-term, impacts of the garage, both good and bad, mostly good in terms of, increased parking. And then allows to free up the parking down at City Dock and allow for those resiliency measures. But there's a lot of short-term issues associated with existing parking when the garage is brought down. So while it's under construction, there's some, you'll hear now you'll see in the paper recently that there's some, there's interest in a lot of those restaurants on City Dock that are really enjoying, using up those parking spaces for outdoor dining, would like to maintain that. And other businesses are concerned about, the need for the parking, particularly when the garage comes down. So definitely a lot of users with different interests, and something that I think this board, should sort of stay in front of and advise where we can.
Your suggestion for a presentation on this general subject is excellent. Can you think about who would be a good presenter, and maybe we could invite them the next time around?
Sure thing. I'll look into that
Okay, terrific.
and get a name.
Um,
I know
I
they've
wanna
recently,
endorse.
I know
wanna-
they've recently presented to the Historic Preservation Commission, the Planning Commission. So they probably have, like Eric is doing on the comp plan, a pretty standard presentation that they can give and where they are and where they would seek some input.
mhm. John?
I wanted to endorse that. I've been wanting to say, I think a presentation to the Transportation Board is spot on, and let's push for that.
Okay, great. Suggestions for speakers gratefully accepted. Okay, next item on the agenda is bicycles, and I hope Zoe, since you have an involvement in some of these things, you can chime in when appropriate. The only thing I need to report to the board is that I'm also a member of the Anne Arundel Bicycle Commission, and we had a discussion and passed a resolution in the Bicycle Commission that commission make basically a mirror image recommendation of our recommendation to the City Council. This would go to the County Council, recommending that the state reverse the default setting for bicycles on sidewalks, that rather than prohibited unless allowed, it become allowed unless prohibited. So the Bicycle Commission is now on record as favoring what we recommended. John Corrin is a member of both the Bicycle Commission and the Transportation Commission of the county, and he will be carrying that recommendation to the Transportation Commission so that two of the county commissions make the same recommendation to the County Council. And my hope is that our delegation in the state legislature will be armed with a coherent and unified recommendation from both the county and city along these lines. So that's all I have to report. On other things related to bicycles, the floor is open. And Zoe, I know you're involved in all of this, in particular one project.
Well, I'll start. I don't have any updates on the Route 450 King George Street bike path, other than the city has identified it as a priority project in the comp plan. So, as that segment, as to connect. The county had included in the proposed budget a line item to fund some design of that segment. And I know they passed the budget last week, and I haven't gone to look to see if that element was included. So you have to dig quite a bit. I actually need to email the planner because he knows exactly where to find it. Save me some hours there. But so I'll look into that. And then I believe the city just recently applied for a grant to do some additional bikeways planning, and Eric's not on the phone, not on the line any longer, but I believe they submitted for a grant a couple weeks ago. So to pursue some additional bikeways planning projects. So They did not include, the city did not include the segment on Route 450 King George because there was county funding and that project is already moving under a different, with a different set of partners already. But they identified a number of other priorities in the city that are also included in the comp plan for that grant. But I can't really speak to it in much specificity. But Eric could if he was on. That's all I have in terms of update.
Okay, thanks. Anything else on bicycles that we should be aware of? Anybody? Oops.
I have a
No.
question that it may be kind of a silly question, but what do we consider an electric bicycle to be? Do we consider that not to be a bicycle? Is it like a low-speed vehicle?
I think there is some variance from jurisdiction to jurisdiction on this, but the most common one, well, let me put it this way. I'm going to repeat John Curran's take on this, and that is that it's less important to regulate the vehicle than it is to regulate behavior. And his point is that where regulation is imposed, it probably ought not to be vehicle specific, but ought to be behavior specific, speed limits and so forth. And so I think at least locally, the recommendation and throughout much of Maryland is that bicycles and electric vehicles of that type are going to be treated the same with respect to access to paths. Does that give you a flavor of where I think we may be going?
Yeah, that's helpful. They're just going to be more and more ubiquitous. I mean, Harley Davidson just came out with a line of electric
Right.
bicycles, in addition to their electric motorcycles.
Uh-huh.
So there may need to be some clarity, a statement of some kind as to how these vehicles are going to be treated, because an electric bicycle, if you don't turn the motor on, then it's a bicycle.
Yes.
So, but I like
Well,
John's analysis of the behavior.
right. Okay. If we have completed that, let's go on to the last item under regular business. We had a meeting of sort of a subcommittee of those people who have indicated that they're interested in the No Fair Transit initiative that we are looking at. That's me and Beth Dolezal and John Purnell, and we three will give you an update of where we think we're going. Just before the meeting, I distributed a document which is kind of a roadmap for where we can be going. This is a big topic. It's going to take some work in order to make a credible recommendation that's likely to be acted on by the city, because it has big financial implications as well as lots of implications. So I just wanted to step through very quickly how we think we're going to approach this. And before I do that, let me invite any member of the board who has a particular interest in looking at this No Fair Transit initiative to join us and work with us at developing a recommendation which is strong enough to be actionable. The document that I submitted to everybody is, I'll just go through it very simply, has 4 parts. First of all, we feel we need a very solid understanding of the financial components of the present transit system, what the costs are, what the income streams are, who pays for it, who the beneficiaries are, and so forth. And that includes not only operational costs, revenues and costs, but also capital improvements, revenues and costs. The second area that we need to develop knowledge on is what is the system? The number of buses now, what it's likely to look like in the future, the number of routes, whether they are coherent and well mapped out, how many passengers are presently served, what we think a reasonable trajectory for the future might be, and how a no fare initiative might contribute to a trajectory of increasing ridership. And then third, we would like to develop options for creating a fare-free system. There's no single path forward. A number of jurisdictions around the country have approached this and implemented it, and they've done so in different ways in different places. And so what we would like to do is to develop from those case studies and our analysis, a list of options with recommendations for which options might work best for Annapolis. And then finally, the bottom line would be a clear recommendation to the City Council for action in the future that would move the city from a fare-based system to a fare-free system of transit in Annapolis. The underlying principle here is that transit is already heavily subsidized. The number that we hear frequently, Kwaku has cited this several times, is that 17% of the operations are paid for by fares, and that's a large enough proportion of the total cost of the system as to be very difficult to give up. An alternative way of looking at this is that the cost of moving riders around is not contributed by merely 17%, but there are other costs than operational. The amortized cost of the capital investment in the system is an additional annual cost. And if you add the amortized capital investment to the annual operating cost, you find that the fares contribute a number markedly smaller than that 17%. We need to calculate that 17%. I'm guessing now it's less than 10%. And so that leads to the question, if riders are asked to pay 10% of the cost, and that's keeping riders out of the buses, why aren't we paying the additional 10% to fill up those buses and get some increased utility out of them? That's the simple proposition, but the numbers need to be nailed down. And that's all I had to say about it, but the other two participating members, John and Beth, would you like to continue?
John?
I'm just following your lead, and we're next step one is to dig into the financials and understand the realities of what free fare, no fare transit looks like. How could it be modeled? So that's step one that we're starting to work on. And a starting point, of course, is the budget, which has already something we can start with.
Okay.
We're having a meeting on Thursday with Ellie, and we're going to get hopefully explain to her where we are, what we're doing, what our thoughts are, what our hope for the transit system is, and what we can accomplish, but also to get some help from her as to how to who to go in the city and how to get the information that we need to be able to effectively come up with an alternative of what can be done with the transportation system, because it certainly needs something. And cities that have gone to fare-free, their transportation systems are very viable and very do very well. And so it's something to really think about. And they think of, we already think of the transportation system as a service of the city. So it's just taking it that one step further and making it a true service of the city, and making it so that it's really viable for everybody to use. And hopefully everybody will once if it gets started, or certainly many more people will.
Beth, I'd encourage you to work closely with Ellie. By way of example, I spoke months ago, but not all that long ago, about micro transit as an ideal approach to improving transportation in Annapolis. And as Kwaku can testify, Ellie caught that idea as a good one, and now she and Kwaku have been successful in implementing a pilot program for micro transit in town.
Know that. We
and-
know all about that.
Right, but
Part
the
of what
thing,
we're gonna work with her on.
but also in terms of example, once Ellie got excited about that idea, she was able to bring resources to it, her own resources, obviously, but also possibly resources that she could or did reach out to, obviously Kwaku. In terms of the fare issue, which I think Ellie is also committed to, she might be able to find the resources that could underpin this wonderful effort that Kurt has outlined, you've all outlined, for how we go about gathering the material to create that legislation.
Well, that's why we're meeting with her, and
Good.
that's why we're hoping that everything goes along smoothly. But that's exactly why we're meeting with her. So
I'm sorry she's not here today. She had a conflicting
Yeah.
meeting and could not join us. But I understand that her original proposal was for a pilot fare-free system. Maybe it's the thing that you mentioned, Carol, and that has morphed into something else, the creation of an app that would support the transit system. But my understanding of the situation is poor. I wish she were here to clarify it.
yeah.
Well, that's Thursday's meeting. I mean, that's the
Yes.
goal, is to do that. I have a little update for you, Kurt. You'll be pleased to know
Aha.
that I was able to look in the budget. And from a strictly revenue point of view, counting all sources of revenue for the transportation fund, the transportation charges, which I believe is what's collected in the fare boxes, is 7.6%
Of what?
total revenue for the transportation fund.
But it's, I see, but so that excludes capital?
That was just a revenue picture. I didn't take any look at expense. That was strictly of the money that goes into the system, which the bulk of it comes from other financing sources and intergovernmental monies, as in money from the county and the state.
Mhm.
The
So that
total
would-
amount collected is only 7%.
So that would include not only funds that are appropriated for operational reasons, but also funds that go into capital improvements, capital
I
acquisition.
can't answer that question yet because I've only looked at the revenue side.
Okay.
It was strictly a revenue picture, but
Well,
it's in the
that-
budget, and
If
that's the
it's
start.
really 7%, it becomes kind of a no-brainer, doesn't it?
It's starting to look like your instincts are on the mark.
Yes. All right.
May I
Well-
make a comment on that?
Please
Yeah.
do, Kwaku.
Yeah, looking at the budget, what Don refers to basically are the money that comes through the fare box. When we talk about the fare box, there are other ways we also get money for that. For
Okay.
instance, the agreement with the DGS, where they pay the fares of the employees for taking the state shuttle, is not included in that number.
Okay,
So when you take a picture of that, it basically skews it.
Okay.
And going back to Kurt's earlier comment on the fare box, and I understand where you want to go. So my recommendation would be you may want to have your working definition of what a fare box recovery is, because the FTMTA has a different definition where they look at your regular operating costs, and then you take your advertising revenue, which is considered to be part of the fare box. The state shuttle agreement is considered also a fare box, and other stuff. So there is a form that we complete every quarter, and you put in the numbers, and then it spits out what is the percentage of your fare box ratio or recovery ratio. That's the term that they use. And they have, it's a kind of a benchmark, so to speak. So if you want to go into that direction where you try to take into account the capital cost of equipment and the buses, you may want to think of a working definition for that particular purpose. The
Thank you.
other thing-
That's really critically important. We need to understand that. My initial impulse is to say that some portions of those things presently called fare box are not really what we're talking about. In my view, things like this, that's general services of the state? Is that the revenue source that you're talking about, Kwaku?
Yeah, the DGS, they call it special state. If you look at the budget, there's a line
Yeah.
item.
Exactly. And
Yeah,
I
basically,
don't think we would be proposing that kind of funding cease. We wouldn't propose that contributions by businesses for their employees cease, any other sources of revenues. What I had in mind, although this is subject to further discussion, is the retail contribution to fares by individuals. That's what I'm talking about.
yeah, I understand that, but the state DGS is part of, because they could have paid individually, collect their receipt, and take it to DGS for processing and payment. So what DGS did was basically, we did calculate the cost and give it to them and say, well, we will pay it in bulk so that our state employees or anybody who is coming to town to do work with the state government will show an ID. In fact, on the fare box screen, there is an icon that if you're a state employee and you actually get on, the driver will hit it to indicate that, yes, your fare has already been paid through the special agreement. So that's what I'm talking about.
And I would
So
hope we
Kwaku,
would preserve that revenue.
Yep, Kwaku, just so you're up to speed, I've forgotten you were listening in on this as I was doing my fancy calculations. After Ellie, I think the road leads to you, and we want to sit down and understand the kind of information you were just sharing with us. So we absolutely know that we have to understand this better than we do now. So I'm looking forward to that conversation.
That's fine. I can also point you to one report. Every year, I'm not sure of the timeline. The city has audited financial report. And in that, it has all the, under the transportation fund, you can see the details of the expenditures and the revenues. I think that would be the official numbers that the city actually will have for the parking, for the transportation fund under which they operate in the transit. So
could you share that with us, Kwaku?
I don't have it. I think the finance director is the appropriate person to contact for that information. And sometimes they have posted some of the older versions online. So you may want to go under the city website, finance. I think they have financial statements. They have about 3 or 4 years back. So we can look at the history of the transportation fund. I don't have it here, right? But I have been there to look at the official numbers that at the end of the year that the city records.
Yeah, if you can point us toward those things, that would be great.
I got them right here, 2015 to 2020.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Excellent.
All right. And one more thing about the micro transit. Katie, you're right. The idea from Ellie was kind of the free transit. We look at that, and basically, our recommendation is that for us, we do have a recommendation in the transit development plan, a short-term one, which is generally from operational point of view is cost neutral, but we need some one-time kind of money to develop the platform and move forward to that. So she was delighted to get that idea. So she made changes to her original amendment, which was for the free transit services for 3 months or 90 days, into this kind of a one-time fund to start the micro transit. So we are talking with vendors in terms of the apps and the software and anything else, and how we can also use it in ADA for our transit service or even fixed route, if it's applicable. So beginning July 1st, we will have some plans in place to look forward to the implementation of this pilot micro transit, or what we call it, flex feeder. So that is coming. We are hoping that once the budget is passed, that amendment will be part of the approved budget so that we can move forward with that.
Is it true that a substantial part of that effort is going to be the creation of a cell phone app?
The app is part of the software. It's just a small piece of it.
I see.
Yeah, because in
Will it
fact,
be generally usable over the full transit system or only for this special component?
for this one and ADA.
I see.
Yeah.
Yeah, it would be nice if we could somehow generalize this and solve the problem of information to all transit users.
Well, we have looked at that. It may be coming down. You may have some conversation about that in the near future.
You know, and I would really encourage you to basically steal what you can from other localities that have done this successfully rather than starting from scratch.
Oh no, we are not actually. We are not starting from scratch. We normally shop around the country to see the success stories and how you can apply it to the unique Annapolis situation. So that's what we do.
Yeah.
So we don't start from scratch.
Good. Okay. Well, I guess unless anybody else has something, that concludes that topic. And we're ready to go around the table, starting with Zoe.
I don't have any updates, Kurt. I gave you the update on the bike path, and I think we talked about bicycles in general. So good to go.
Thank you. Vince?
Excuse me. Sorry for being late also, first of all. I don't have any updates, but I would like to, if there is a subcommittee that is more on cycling and pedestrian issues, if there's not one already, I'd like to be on one.
Great. We'll include you in everything bicycle related henceforth. All right. I have nothing beyond what I've already covered. And John Purnell.
I think I'm pretty much talked out for the evening, so I'll pass.
All right. Jessica Charles Allen is not with us tonight. Elvia.
Sorry, the stupid mute button. No, nothing else.
Okay. Well, you've caused me personally some anguish. I'm starting to lust for the Y model Tesla. And the dilemma that I face is the one that you always face in this thing. I know that there are big changes coming in the next 12 to 18 months that are going to turn that thing into a 500-mile vehicle. And so I'm going to sit on my heels for a while. David DeQuinzio?
I have no update.
Okay, can you say anything about your kind offer to become our ambassador to the Planning Commission? Is that something that you've made progress on, or have any recommendations for how we can coordinate our work better?
I have really not made a lot of progress on it. I've had a difficult couple of months.
Oh, tough. I'm sorry. Charles, are you still with us? I think you are. Yeah.
I do have a question for Kwaku if he's still on.
I'm still here.
Do you know, sir, when buses will be resuming night operations?
We have a tentative outline, so I will check, and after we get approval from the city manager and the mayor, we will let you know. But we have been talking about that, given the fact that the emergency orders are being lifted effective July 1st, right?
Yes.
So we want to align it along that side. And also the malls are going to open for longer periods of time. So we are working on it.
So you think it's likely, Kwaku, that by July 1st or on July 1st, resumption of the standard schedule will occur?
Yes, especially for those routes that were affected. There is one question mark on the orange route though, because in our Flex Feeder pilot project, we are kind of redeploying that resources alongside the orange route, and other areas that may need that kind of on-demand service. Apart from that, I believe it's the evening service, which is the purple route, because now we end at 7 p.m. So that will be reintroduced if it's going full service. And I believe the brown route typically during the day has 3 buses at a frequency of 30 minutes. So 1 bus will be added back to that so that it gets back to its normal route. So a few of the routes are not at full capacity in terms of operation, but we believe that that will come along very quickly.
All right. Thank you, Charles. That's an important question.
Yes.
One that affects me every day. I ride transit daily.
Oh, okay. Which route?
He asked which route, Charles?
Any of them.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
So that's all right. Hopefully you'll fix it very soon.
Carol?
Thank you, Kwaku. I have
I don't
nothing
have
else.
more. I have shared my excitement about what is before us right now. It's a very opportune time and a very encouraging time in terms of improving transportation in Annapolis. So let's get with it. And I'm glad that you're all thinking about these things in such detail as budgeting for no fare. That's great.
All right. Kara?
No further updates from me.
All right, thanks. And Beth?
The only thing I have to say is I have gotten with Elaine Fogarty about why there is nobody on the City Dock Action Committee from the Transportation Board, especially when it deals with the parking. And so I have been invited and was invited, like last week, they had a presentation on what was happening at the Hillman Garage. They had one session for the business owners and one session for residents. Interestingly, there were like 5 or 6 of us there. That's it. But they did talk about the garage and how it was what they were doing and how they were going to do it and stuff. We've already discussed most of what they said. And yes, they don't know at all yet what they're going to do with the cars that are going to be displaced because of the garage being down. The garage is going to have like about 100 and some more spaces, but they're going to be, those spaces will basically disappear because so many spaces are being taken away at City Dock. And then if the restaurants continue to use up parking spaces, it's going to be like a wash is what it's going to be. They figure there may be a few extras, but it's basically going to come out a wash. There is another meeting coming up that's kind of like a work meeting, and some, I'm not quite sure exactly what that's going to be, but I've been invited. The thing is, they don't know exactly when that meeting is. It's supposed to be on the 24th. They don't know if that is really going to happen on the 24th. So as soon as I know when the meeting is and what it is, I'll attend, and then I'll report on it. So, but I really don't have much to say yet because I haven't been to anything really other than that general presentation for Hillman Garage. But so hopefully I'll be an inclusive member in some way, at least to report back, if nothing else.
Thank you. That'll
I'm
be very
pleased
helpful.
to hear, Beth, that you took that initiative, because that passed through my mind in the last week or so that I paid so much attention to that. So if you could do something to formalize your role with them, that would be great for us.
Yeah, and I've tried. And the thing is, it took quite a few times of me contacting Ellie and Elaine to, it's Elaine or Eileen, I can't remember, maybe Zoe, you know, correct me. But before they finally broke down and said, okay, we'll invite you, we'll let you know, so.
I don't want to make this a political discussion, but just in as few words as possible, this is a dynamic time right now. and it would be possible for us to be lost in the
Oh,
in the
absolutely.
shuffle. And
We
so
should
the
have
more we
done
can do to make our presence felt with all of what's going on, the better for the community, not just for ourselves, but we're closest to the people.
But we should have been included all along and we weren't. I mean, I can't, it's always baffled me. as
You're
to
used,
why-
we're used to being left out, but not anymore.
But it has baffled me all along why somebody wasn't asked to be part, at least one person to be part of the parking part of the city dock action plan. And I
For you.
Thank you. Keep pushing. All right, the Transportation Department update. Kwaku, you've kindly done a number of topics for us already. I thank you. Is there more?
Yeah, first I would like to apologize. Monday traffic on the Bay Bridge, I didn't expect that it was going to be bad, but it was really bad this evening. So I didn't get home on the Eastern Shore early. So I do apologize for coming on late. The big announcement is that I'm not sure if you are aware, tomorrow at 3 p.m. in council chambers, City Council will have a work session. And the topic is toward a zero emission bus fleet for Annapolis Transit. So the department will be presenting kind of our concept or our plans or strategy in terms of when the current fleet, each one is due for replacement. What is the possibility of replacing it with battery electric bus? The past 2 weeks, we have got a lot of good information. That actually did surprise me. So it will be part of our presentation tomorrow at 3 p.m. You may want to check the city website in terms of the agenda, and they may have a copy of our presentation so that you can take a look at it prior to the work session, and you can have a very good discussion on what is happening in the transit world so far as electric buses are concerned. So that's the big news. The other thing is kind of course, you don't have a director yet, but the employees, they have actually stepped up and filled the void. Everybody doing much more, and I really appreciate them very much. And lastly, I just sent you the monthly report, not for the month of May, for the month of April. We are working on the month of May. So as soon as it's done, I will send Kate a copy for distribution.
Yes, the one that you sent me most recently has been distributed to board members.
Okay. So, and typically at the end of the fiscal year, sometime July, early August, we do a big report looking at the whole year in terms of ridership and so on and so forth. This year, we plan to also do some how the transportation or the transit actually is helping reduce tailpipe emissions. The EPA has a new software program, kind of, I think it's an Excel-based program where you input some basic information and it will calculate how much in metric tons of emissions that you have reduced by taking people to work instead of them driving to work. So we plan to include that in the end of fiscal year report. So look for that. I'm very much excited by this one too. I think that's all that I have for now.
Thank you very much. Yeah. So we're in new business. The first item I'd like to bring up is, are we going to take the traditional August recess? Does anyone have a proposal or a motion in that regard?
I suggest we take it. We not meet in August.
Is there a second?
Seconded.
Discussion? Well, let's vote. All in favor of taking an August recess, signify by saying aye and or raising your hand. This seems to be a pretty clear. All right, that's what we'll do. The second item, I know at least one member of the board has suggested that we recognize the happy new reality of being able to see each other in person. And John or others, would you like to make a motion with respect to how we conduct our meetings online, in person, or a hybrid thereof?
John or others?
Yes.
I will make a motion that after the state of Maryland emergency is lifted on July 1, that we alternate between online and in-person meetings.
But the city isn't lifting it for 30 more days.
Then if you're suggesting an amendment to my motion that we make it August 1st, and we're not meeting in August, so we can do September.
Yes.
I thought,
Effective September
correct me
1.
correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought we were free to do that already,
What?
to meet in person.
Not, he just mentioned the state of emergency. That's what he was basing it on. And the city doesn't release the state of emergency for 30 days after the state.
I think I have a note saying that we are free to meet in person, but I will be if there's something contradicts that, please let me know.
I just thought the state of emergency was a nice thing to tie it to.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't really have any
He wasn't-
specific needs.
Yeah, he wasn't trying to say that we couldn't. He was just using that as a
Right.
as a timeline type thing.
Yeah. Well,
September 1.
I'll participate in the discussion. I think it's a fine suggestion. Thanks for I think we had a second. I think alternate meetings would be a good and efficient way to have the best of both worlds, and would think that maybe with the next month's meeting, unless something is standing in the way, would be a way to start in person. Other discussion?
I would like to say one other thing. Since we've gotten used to Zoom, if we were having an in-person meeting and somebody, say, was not here but wanted to participate, could they participate through Zoom at an in-person meeting? Is that possible?
I know the city council has done it, but I'm guessing they are reluctant to offer that to us, but I will ask.
Okay, because I'm thinking,
Brigitte, are you listening to any of this? She may actually know this.
yeah.
Actually, Julian's here. I kind of
Yeah.
popped in hearing some of this chatter. How you guys doing?
Hey, Julian.
I mean, even if all we did was just listen and weren't able to actually participate, but be part of by listening or something.
So there are a few things that you guys are kind of throwing out there that have a little extra complications than I think you might realize. One, especially if you're going to be alternating back and forth, there needs to be at least 2 weeks notice so that it could be staffed.
Yes,
The virtual side of things.
that's no problem. We will announce the schedule. Okay.
Well, I'm saying that so it can't be like a last minute. You decide, well, actually,
Right.
that person can't be here. We're going to go virtual. We might not be
Gotcha.
able to staff it.
All right.
Another part of that, the combination virtual and in person has a lot of layers of complication. Kind of back to staffing a little bit with that as well. But the other part that I would like to point out is that you're going to wind up being a little inconsistent, that now certain meetings will be recorded and certain won't, which would be something that you guys might want to kind of put in consideration as well. Currently, the general word right now is that right now the boards and commissions are going to stay virtual until 30 days after the city has lifted the state of emergency. So right now the word is basically September.
Okay, so our hands are tied. Thanks for that. I wasn't aware of that.
Yep.
I have a question. Prior to the pandemic, were the meetings of the board not recorded?
Nope.
So Zoom brought us the notion that we could record these meetings.
Yes. Yep.
Oh, we have the minutes. The minutes are on the website. So you have that.
We would find ourselves in certain circumstances where people would request a specific meeting to be recorded here and there, but also then depends on where you're meeting. So for instance, if you're meeting, say, at Pip Moyer, there's no audio built into that. It would be then potentially someone with a phone be recording, which it's sort of kind of doesn't work because the audio would be horrible. No one can really hear what's being heard. And while it creates an element of transparency, it creates more issues than transparency in the end.
Some commissions with regulatory authority, like the Planning Commission, has met in city council and has been recorded live, right?
Yeah, and that was one that would be on a specific case by case where they would ask us to do it here and there. I'm thinking that probably moving forward it'll be pretty regular after this. But again, that is because we have infrastructure in city chambers for audio and video.
Okay.
Okay, well, that makes it clear. So if you're not able to attend a live meeting, then it's just like it used to be. You're just not there.
You know, last I was on the board, we actually met in City Hall, in council chambers.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did. The transportation board, that's always where we met.
Yes, it was.
Motion to table this until the fall when we might have.
Second. All right. Anyway, it does seem to be appropriate to. I'd love to get together with you guys, but there appears to be a roadblock in the way temporarily. So let's come back to this and pursue what I think is an eminently reasonable suggestion of alternating if it can be done. And it sounds as though there's a pretty good chance.
Can I just ask one question? Not on this. I want to go back to what Kwaku mentioned about the work session tomorrow. Kwaku, is there a way for the public to listen in?
I don't know. Julian will be able to share some information on that because I believe council work sessions are recorded. Don't know whether it will be on YouTube or not.
Sometimes it's Facebook Live, but I'm looking on the website and I don't see anything like that.
Yeah, LV, I can chime in there. So it will be streamed both to YouTube and Facebook, and also on the city's broadcast, both on Verizon
Okay.
900 and Comcast 900, Verizon channel 34.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful since I've only been working on this for how many years? And this is the first I heard about a special work session on the topic. So thank you, Kwaku, for bringing it up.
You're welcome.
Okay, is everybody happy with just putting this decision off until we have a little clarification? All right.
Yes.
That's it.
Fine with me.
Yep.
Well, I think we're at that end point. Unless there is new business that I'm not aware of. Any new business? Going once, going twice? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I so move.
All in favor? Yay.
Aye.
Well, thanks, folks, for coming together. This was very interesting, and we'll see you next month.
See you then.
Aye.